This doesn't work, by the way. If you hook this up here, it doesn't work.
Yeah. No, I know.
Whoever's doing that, don't
Yeah.
work. So you need to lose it.
Makes it more difficult. Yeah.
It does work, I see it. Not this, so not this. Cardinals.
What is the Vivasvan?
Vivasvan? That's one of the acharyas.
Vivasvan is Vivasvan is the sun god.
Oh, sorry.
Vivasvan?
Yeah.
Vivasvan is the sun god.
Oh.
He is technically an acharya, isn't he?
But we don't say he's one of the acharyas.
So when it says see Vivasvan, what is it talking about?
See,
It's another entry in the index.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can look up the word.
Viva universe.
Jaya
Radha Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavala Girivardhari Jai Gopi Janavala Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Bhad Paramahansa Parikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Bhakta Zach, can you take this water? Take it out there and pour out about 2 inches into a plant and bring it back. Thank you. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jai Madiret Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. That way it doesn't go all over my shirt. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Okay, what's happening to our verse? What's coming? By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service unto the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. You know what that means? It can't be stopped. Once you develop that bhakti, it doesn't go back. No going back. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 On this first day of September 2017 in SanDiego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in the third canto, the status quo, 25th chapter, the glories of devotional service, text number 31. Maitreya Uvacha Vididvartam Kapilo Matur Itham Viditvatam Kapilo Maturitham Jata Sneho Yatra Tanva Abhijataha Jata Sneho Yatra Tanva Abhijataha Tatvamnayam Yat Pravadanti Sankyam Tatvamnayam Yat Pravadanti Sankyam Provacha Vai Bhakti Vidhana Yogam Provacha Vai Bhakti Vidhana Yogam Maitreya Uvacha Viditvatam Kapilo Maturitam Jata Sneho Yatra Tanva Vijataha Tatvamnayam Yat Pravadanti Sankyam Provacha Vai Bhakti Vidhana Yogam. Okay, now Jata Sneho, you have to give the O its due. It is a fully long Jata Sneho. All of those letters, those syllables are of equal weight. Jata Sneho Yat, and then the fifth one too. Jata Sneho Yat Tanva Vijata. You got it? Jata Sneho Yat Tanva Vijata. Closed door, please. Okay, let's try again. Maitreya Uvacha Viditvatam Kapilo Maturitham Jata Sneho Yat Tanva Vijata Jata Sneho Yat Tanva Vijata Tatvamnayam Yat Pravadanti Sankyam Provacha Vai Bhakti Vidhana Yogam. Janardhan Das, you want to try it? No. Okay, Damodar Prabhu. Maitreya Uvacha Viditvartam Kapilo Maturitam Jata sneho yat tatanva vijataha. Tatvanayam yat pravadanti sankyam. Provachavai bhakti vitana yogam. Brian. Maitreya uvacha. Viditvatam kapilo maturitam. Jatasne yotto tatanva vijataha. Tatvanayam yat pravadanti sankyam. Provachavai bhakti vitana yogam. Zach. Maitreya uvacha. Viditvatam kapilo maturitam. Jata sneho yat tatanva vijataha. Tatvanayam yat pravadanti sankyam. Provachavai bhakti vitana yogam. Dr. Roy. Maitreya uvacha. Viditvatam kapilo maturitam. Jata sneho yat tatanva vijataha. Tatvanayam yat pravadanti sankyam. Provachavai bhakti vitana yogam. Go ahead. Maitreya uvacha. Viditvatam kapilo maturitam. Jata sneho yat tatanva vijata. Tatvanayam yat pravadanti sankyam. Provachavai bhakti vitana yogam. Maitreya uvacha. Maitreya said, Viditva, having known. Artham, purpose. Kapilaha, Lord Kapila. Matuhu, of his mother. Itham, thus. Jata sneyaha, became compassionate. Yatra, upon her. Tanva, from her body. Abhijataha, born. Tattva amnayam, truth received by disciplic succession. Yat, which. Pravadanti, they call. Sankyam, Sankhya philosophy. Provacha, he described. Why? In fact. Bhakti, devotional service. Vitana, spreading. Yogam, mystic yoga. Translation, Sri Maitreya said, after hearing the statement of his mother, Kapila could understand her purpose, and he became compassionate toward her because of being born of her body. He described the Sankhya system of philosophy, which is a combination of devotional service and mystic realization, as received by disciplic succession. So there's no purport. I'll read the next verse, text 32. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Devanam Gunalinganam Anushravika Karmanam Sattva Evaika Manaso Vritti Swabhavaki Tuya Animitta Bhagavati Bhakti Siddhir Gariyasi. Lord Kapila said, the senses are symbolic representations of the demigods, and their natural inclination is to work under the direction of the Vedic injunctions. As the senses are representatives of the demigods, so the mind is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The mind's natural duty is to serve. When that service spirit is engaged in devotional service to the Personality of Godhead, without any motive, that is far better even than salvation. Purport. The senses of the living entity are always engaged in some occupation, either in activities prescribed in the injunctions of the Vedas or in material activities. The natural inclination of the senses is to work for something, and the mind is the center of the senses. The mind is actually the leader of the senses, therefore it is called sattva. Similarly, the leader of all the demigods who are engaged in the activities of this material world, the sun god, moon god, Indra, and others, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is stated in the Vedic literature that the demigods are different limbs of the universal body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Our senses are also controlled by different demigods. Our senses are representations of various demigods, and the mind is the representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The senses, led by the mind, act under the influence of the demigods. When the service is ultimately aimed at the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the senses are in their natural position. The Lord is called ISKCON, for he is actually the proprietor and ultimate master of the senses. Rishika means senses. Isha means Lord, Lord of the senses. The senses and the mind are naturally inclined to work, but when they are materially contaminated, they work for some material benefit or for the service of the demigods, although actually they are meant to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The senses are called Rishika, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called ISKCON. Indirectly, all the senses are naturally inclined to serve the Supreme Lord. That is called bhakti. Lord Kapila Dev said that when the senses, without desire for material profit or other selfish motives, are engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in devotional service. That spirit of service is far better than siddhi, salvation. Bhakti, the inclination to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is in a transcendental position, far better than mukti, or liberation. Thus, bhakti is the stage after liberation. Unless one is liberated, one cannot engage the senses in the service of the Lord. When the senses are engaged either in material activities of sense gratification or in the activities of the Vedic injunctions, there is some motive. But when these same senses are engaged in the service of the Lord and there is no motive, motive here means material motive, that is called animitta and is the natural inclination of the mind. The conclusion is that when the mind, without being deviated either by Vedic injunctions or by material activities, is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness or devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is far better than the most aspired for liberation from material entanglement. Om jnana timarandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So first we're going to go back to that first verse we read, because I wanted to point out one word there that's quite important. Combination word, tattva amnaya. Now amnaya here is defined as through the disciplic succession. Knowledge, or through the disciplic succession, tattva amnaya is knowledge received through the disciplic succession. Now amnaya can also mean the Vedic Shastras, the revealed scriptures. And really there's no difference. The genuine disciplic succession of gurus and disciples coming down all the way from Krishna are delivering the Vedic knowledge from the Shastra. It's understood like we're reading now, Bhagavat Purana, the Srimadbhagavatam. Srimadbhagavatam is the ripened fruit of all Vedic literature. So that means with our not so much reading time, and even the reading time we have, we may not be able to understand everything. So we don't have to read all the other literatures. We don't have to become familiar with the Rig Veda. We just know it exists, even if we don't know anything about it. As long as we are following Bhagavatam and we study Bhagavatam, we'll be drinking in the actual truth of the Vedas. So,
You're saying, in other words, that's the disciplic succession as well?
Well, let me explain. The disciplic succession, for example, the recent disciplic succession, starting when we have the pictures on the altar. You see those pictures. So we have the gentleman all the way on the right chanting. He's just wearing a little loincloth. That's Jagannath Das Babaji. So he was a great realized soul who lived in the latter part of the 19th century. Actually, he lived over 100 years. he was the instructor. He passed on so much knowledge to the next gentleman, who's named Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he's a great realized soul. He was a householder. He had many children. But he's known as the seventh Goswami. He was so realized, he wrote many, many books. But he was the father of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who's the fourth gentleman, actually. And so he took so much knowledge from Jagannath Das Babaji, and then he wrote so many books on that basis. He investigated for himself into the Shastra. But the point was that all he was receiving was knowledge from the scripture, much of it from Bhagavatam and books following Bhagavatam. So the two are kind of synonymous. And the reason I wanted to mention it because Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he wrote a book, many books, but he wrote a verse in which he summarizes the whole philosophy in one big verse. This is called the Dashamula verse. Dashamula means roots, the 10 roots of philosophy. It's good to know this verse, even if you just know the English. Because it gives you a grasp. Sometimes the philosophy is like this huge thing that's coming at you in all directions, and how am I ever going to understand it? But actually, every part of you can go through the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, and every one of those verses fits in under a subject of these 10 roots. So the very first word in that verse is Amnaya. Amnaya Prahatatvam. Now this brings up, before I continue with the verse, the understanding, how do we know what we know? Or what we think we know. This is a science, a part of philosophy called epistemology. Because, for instance, in our philosophy we say, okay, there's different ways of knowing. And when you think about it, the most obvious way is through your own senses. You investigate, you find out something, and you say, well, okay, on the basis of this, now I'm going to act this way. And in this way, material knowledge is developed. All of science is that. I remember the scientific method: observation, and you form a theory, then you test it, a hypothesis, and you test it, and you come up with a theory, a working theory, which conforms to all the evidence and can be reproduced. That's the scientific method. So that's one way. That's called the ascending process. And all of these things around us are built on that basis, and so much knowledge, right? But that cannot touch the truths that are beyond the reach of the material senses and mind, which is the very definition of transcendental. So how are we going to find that out? That's what we really need to know. Is there a God or isn't there? Is there reincarnation or isn't there? We can't just figure it out. You can go from here to eternity. It's beyond our senses. For that we need a transcendental source of knowledge. And that consists of, first of all, Krishna, God. Now, there has to be some faith that is a God, but we're listening to God's words right now. Lord Kapiladev, he appears in so many incarnations right in the Bhagavatam. What to speak of Bhagavad Gita? That's Krishna, Bhagavan speak. So he's giving us knowledge, and it's coming down to us, not directly. We're not so fortunate that we're living 5,000 years ago and Krishna is speaking to us directly. But the wonderful thing is, because it's transcendental knowledge, it doesn't matter. When we pick up this Bhagavad Gita and we hear it and we read it in the same mood as Arjuna receiving the knowledge, it's as good as being on the battlefield. And when we're sitting here, we hear Kapila Dev's, we're right there on the strand, the beach of Bindu Sarovar with his mother. Because it's absolute knowledge. So that's Amnaya. So the Vedic revealed Shastras, which is nothing but recorded, if you see, recorded words of great devotees and of Krishna himself. And those words as spoken or written by realized sages who have themselves understood through. So that's the biblical succession. So what does it say about these transcendental subject matters? That's the verse. Amnaya prahatatvam. Praha means speaks, declares the truth. Tattvam. That word tattva appeared here. Tattvamnaya in the third line, right? Tattvamnaya. We kind of tripped over that one. So he says, Amnaya prahatatvam hadamiha padamang sarva shaktim risabdim tadbinang shangsha jivan pakatekavalidan tadvumuktang sabhavat bheda bheda prakasam sakala babihare sadhanam shuddha bhaktim sajim tadpitamevetu buddhisha jadanan goda chandra swayamsa. So these are the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, who's Krishna himself, and is giving us the absolute truth in a way that we can understand it. So what does it say? The first thing is, I'm like, Hadamiha Padamam. Krishna is God. Hari is God. Hari is synonymous with Krishna. Oh, that's the first information. What about him? Sarva Shaktim. He has all these different energies. Now that in itself is a chapter or more description. What are those energies? The material energies, the spiritual energies. So there's a lot of sub-matters, but this is the headings. But he's not just a source of all kinds of energies. He's Rasabdim. He's an ocean of rasa. In other words, he's a person who has all these different relationships and enjoying the rasa or the pleasure of those relationships. So that's a very important point. Then who are we? Tadbin angshang shajivan. The jiva souls are angsha of the Lord. And they're binna. We're eternally individual. We never merge. Binna means separate. So we're separate but the same. But that's beta. There's a separation, but we have the same qualities, just like the sun and the sun rays. We'll have a question later. Okay. So, Tadbin angshan jivan. So what's our situation? Prakati kavalitan. Many jivas like us have been swallowed up by the material energy. So this is all conditioned world. He's describing everything. But, not to despair, tadvimuktans tabhavat. By the mercy of that Hari, some can be liberated. So then, beta prakasham sakalam abhihare. This is the famous, if you notice, achincha beta tattva. This was Lord Chaitanya's special, unique contribution, reconciling all other philosophy. So everything, not just ourselves, but everything, material and spiritual, is simultaneously one with and different from Krishna. Tat refers back to Hari. Tat binangshang. That's us. Beta prakasham. Sakalam means everything. Api Hare. Of Hari, everything is simultaneously one with and different. Beta prakasham sakram. And then, so that's all what we call, and we're going to get to this, Sambandha Gyan. See, Sambandha Gyan is very similar to Sankhya. He's teaching Sankhya. Sankhya means to count in its basic meaning, but it means to analyze. What are we working with here? Okay, there's the soul, and what's around us? And you got all these energies, and we got the senses. What kind of senses? We got the senses that receive knowledge, that we call them the eyes, the nose, etc. But you also got the working senses, right? You got the hands, you got the feet, and the most important working sense for every Vaishnava? No, the voice. The voice. It's the voice. It's not the tongue. Is just that's the taster. Of course, with the tongue helps to speak words, but it's the speaking of words. That's the key. That's a voice. And then also reproductive and excretory senses, those that count. And so those are another five become like this. So that's Sankhya. And this idea of analyzing the energies, that's right there in the Sambandha Gyan. What are those material energies? What are those spiritual energies? We should know what and how they act. We're trying to go from the material to the spiritual energy. And so we should know what they are. And then, so what's the sadhana? What's the practice to have this knowledge realized? Shuddha bhakti, pure devotional service. And that Prabhupada speaks about that in the purport. And what's the goal of this whole thing? Sadhyam is sadhana and sadhya. Sadhana is the practice, sadhya is the goal. Tat pritam eve, pritam, love for that Hari, love for Krishna. That's the goal. 10 points. And it's nice to know that. You can get a handle on the philosophy. So, Kapila Dev is going to speak similar to what that all is. He's going to teach all that systematically. So he begins by describing what the devas are, the demigods. See, we don't often think about the universal form. Universal form is not primary for a devotee. Universal form means God as the universe. That's not just the sun up there. That's one of his eyes. Those aren't just mountains out there. We go a little east. Those are the bones of the body of the universal form. You see that? And where's his feet? Way down there in Patala Loka, near hellish planets. And his head is way up there, Brahmaloka, and all this. In other words, it's seeing this world as the external body of God. That's really what it is. But we're part of it. Our body is part of that. I mean, what is there in our body but earth, water, fire, air, ether? We're part and parcel of the universal earth, universal water. You see that? Our body is like that. And the demigods, they're just more powerful living entities. but they have responsible positions. They occupy positions in that universal form. So everything that we do, from tasting, seeing, hearing, moving, everything, is under the control of a demigod. Now the demigods themselves are under the control of Krishna. But without all of this supervision and sanction, we can't do anything. That's why it says the super soul within the heart, who is after all also directing all the demigods, he's the Upadrashta and Anumanta. Upadrashta means literally to oversee, supervise. And Anumanta means to sanction. Just like the easy example, I'm picking up this glass of water. We've now poured out half of it. Thank you, Zach, so that it won't pour all over me. All right, I'm not going to drink it. So, suppose I'm thirsty. Now, that's second nature. I don't think about it. Oh, I've got to send the neurons down here to the nerves to contract the muscles. You don't think about it. It just happens automatically. But that's happening under the supervision of the super soul and the demigod in charge of that and all this. Says, okay, his arm's not paralyzed. He's not suffering that particular karma, so he can, It all happens, but it's not automatic. Now, what his first statement here is that the sense objects or the senses are under the control of the devas. The senses are symbolic representations of the demigods. Their natural inclination is to work under the direction of the Vedic injunctions. So there is a spoken understanding of how things are supposed to go on in this world for the progress of the souls. There's material progress and spiritual progress. Ultimately, spiritual progress is what we want. But at least we should work under the Vedic injunctions. If we have no idea what they are, then it's no more than animal life. We have a lot of animal in us, right? The human animal. It's not that our bodies have evolved, but we ourselves have evolved through all of these different species, come up to the human form. So, the animals eat, we eat, the animals sleep, we sleep, the animals defend, we defend, the animals have sex, we have sex. We got a lot in common. And that's why the Hitopadesh, instructions for the benefit of humanity. That's what Hita means, welfare. Upadesh. They say, Ahara nidra bhayamaitanansha samanyaretat pashabhi samana dharma hitesham adhiko vishesho dharma hina pashabhi samana. What does it mean, Bala? We share those four things: eating, sleeping, mating, defending. But what's the distinguishing quality for human life? Yeah, but the word is used especially dharma. Dharma hitesham adhiko vishesha. The distinguishing quality of human life is dharma. And without dharma, we're nothing but animals. So then the next quality is, well, what is that dharma? What's the meaning of dharma? And dharma, its basic meaning is that it's what sustains you. It's the quality that distinguishes you, or that you cannot separate. Like you just sat down on one of these nice new comfortable chairs, which we're going to have until time immemorial here. I can see that. There doesn't seem to be any plan to moving them out. But anyway, come Sunday, I guess we'll break them out and we'll have the comfortable chairs. So it's a chair. It's manufactured in China. I'm sure they had, a disciplic line how to make those chairs so that they're comfortable. And it serves its purpose. He's sitting on the chair. He's made it even more comfortable with a little back thing. Now, if he sits down on that chair, somebody donated all these chairs, and the first one we sit down on, it collapses, then that chair is not fulfilling its dharma as a chair, which means everyone knows what a chair does. It lets you sit up and your feet down. You see? Everything has its dharma. Sugar has its dharma. If you see a little white powder, it says, is it sugar? Is it not? Okay, we'll go outside the kitchen and taste a little bit. That's not sugar. That's salt. Why is it marked sugar? It's the problem. So everything has its dharma. And we as spirit souls have our dharma also. And our dharma is to serve. Our actual dharma is to serve Krishna. But we've forgotten that. It's become distorted, perverted. So instead of serving Krishna, we're serving the senses directly. The senses are meant to serve Krishna. The mind is the representative of God. And the mind, when it's fixed on God, naturally the senses cooperate in the service, and you're in your natural position. And ultimately, having a material body is unnatural for the soul. So you get rid of this material body with this artificial, clumsy, contraption with these senses, and you have your spiritual senses. And that's what we're aiming for. So, but at least the Vedic injunctions keep you regulated. So there's laws, mano samhita, for marriage, for birth, for how to work in society. If you don't follow the law, the dharma, then you get uncontrolled. Then see what we have here. Not on your feet. The book. I'm sorry. We try to keep that's better. Or you can feel free to take one of those things next time. So, the mind's natural duty is to serve, and when the mind is fixed on Krishna, engaged in when that service spirit is engaged in devotional service without any material motive, that is far better than salvation. Now, salvation here, there's two words used. One is siddhi, and one is mukti. Siddhi and mukti, there's a little overlap there. Siddhi means perfection. Oftentimes the siddhi for yogis is meant to be those, perfections, getting smaller than the smallest, reading minds and everything. But the other common goal is mukti, or liberation. So this comes up again and again. As bhaktas, our primary motivation is in mukti. But just like we try to maintain the mode of goodness, because it's a good platform, we discussed this, upon which to build your bhakti and come to the mode of pure goodness. Just goodness alone is not good enough, because it's always tinged with passion and ignorance, and ultimately it also conditions you to a sense of happiness and peace and knowledge and all this stuff. That's not going to make it. That'll keep you bound here. And you'll also get tinged with passion and ignorance. But if you can come to the point of pure goodness, the Vasudeva state, and stay on there, then that's where your bhakti will develop very nicely. And so that's what we're aiming for. So, mukti itself is a preliminary goal. It's important to desire it because it keeps you moving in the right direction. That's why Krishna says, Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshanudarshanam. This is one of the lines in the 8 to 13, or 8 to 13, I think, in the 13th chapter, 8 to 11, I'm sorry, in which he describes knowledge, beginning with humility, amanadvam madambidvam, lack of deceit, that's the second one, serving the acharya, and cleanliness. Where do you go? You go to university, you're going to find out as part of the curriculum? No. They don't care what you do in your dorm, as long as you ace the test. And the professors, they're dogs, basically. I mean, I remember once I was working with Hridayananda Maharaj on a book that was never published. It was called, it was a philosophy book. Eventually we published one called Beyond Illusion and Doubt, selections of Prabhupada's conversation. But at the time the idea was, well, Hridayananda Maharaj will converse with some of the leading members of leading teachers of philosophy, Western philosophy. And we fly people in even from Britain, the leader in Platonic philosophy and Socratic philosophy, this and that. So I was designated as the lunch taker, because he would speak with them all morning, and he didn't want to speak to them at lunch and then all afternoon. It was too much, the guy. So he said, give him a break at lunchtime. There's one guy who was in, I think we were in Miami at that time. We did some in Alatra, before it was Alatra. This is when it was a little backwater farm at that time, early 80s. So, and the guy, he sat down to lunch. There was alcohol on his breath. And then during the lunch, he would, a little bit, a little flask, And here was the leading, pre-Platonic philosophy. So there's no moral content, you see. It's all like mental stuff, you know what I'm saying? So that's not what we're talking about, in Vedic philosophy, the moral content is preliminary. Krishna's amanadvam, lack of pride. Right away, these guys are disqualified. They're so proud of their, position and so many things. So, and one of the elements is unflinching devotional service to Krishna. But one of the elements is, and this is something we really need to take seriously, janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshanudarshanam. To see, to be aware of, not let it just, forget about it. The evils of birth, old age, disease, and death. These are like the pillars of, you can't get away from that in the material world. And all of them completely knock out the idea of somehow building something lasting and worthwhile in this world. You know, whether it's your own economic development or some fame or something, you know. So so getting free of those means liberation. You see what I'm saying? So that's a healthy understanding that keeps you, you know, chanting and doing your regulations when there's no spontaneous attraction to it. You're not so attracted, you know, well, I got to do it because I want to get out of this birth and death, right? I mean, the only way that you can enjoy in this world is through illusion, to forget those things. Forget. You know, and then if those don't get you, then there's always the threefold miseries. You know, how about the Adi Daivik? We had a little bit of the Adi Daivik recently in Southeast Texas. Everybody's talking about it. The whole world knows about it. Biblical storm. Something like 54 trillion gallons of water was poured on it. That's one city. That would, like, it'd be enough water to supply New York City for 20 years or something like that. Yes, India is also suffering. There's huge floods in India, Bangladesh, Nepal. It's global warming, you know. So that's part of it, and then you've got your, you know, adhyatmic miseries, adhibhatic miseries. So therefore we want liberation. I mean, who wouldn't want it? Who wouldn't want to get out? Don't you want to get out of prison? Yeah. You know, don't try to make a nice cell, you know, where I could, you know, settle in. You want to get out. So that's fine, and that should keep us coming among Bhakti Chin Hare Krishna. But the chanting and the process of bhakti soon gives you a sense of liberation because you're not, you know, linked up to trying to enjoy your senses, and overwhelms with the rasa, the pleasure of bhakti. After a while, that becomes more important, and that's why ultimately you say, "I don't care, Krishna. You know, you can take me back to Godhead, you can send me down to hell, as long as I can always remember you, have the association of devotees, and serve your lotus feet." That's always the condition, if you notice these prayers. You can, you know, punish me or make me into a, you know, insect, as long as it's on the wall of a devotee so I can keep here. Yeah. That's how pleasurable devotional service is. So, this idea that the senses are representative of demigods, the mind is representative of God, and that the natural position of these things is that the mind thinks of Krishna and the senses serve Krishna, and then you become happy and peaceful. This is I remember reading this when I first read this. This is really, you know, gave me a lot of insight into how at the present moment our mind is our worst enemy. It's right in the Gita. The uncontrolled mind. Uddade atmanatmanam natmanam avasariye atmavayatmano bandhu atmava ruparatmanaha. You can elevate yourself by the mind or degrade yourself by the mind. The controlled mind is your friend. The uncontrolled mind is your enemy. Well, how do you control the mind? By fixing it on Krishna. And how to do that? Chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. People don't realize, you know, we go around chanting and they say, oh yeah, these guys are chanting, they're brainwashing themselves. But actually, they're brainwashed, if, you know, in the ordinary sense. They're convinced of something that's completely false. I'm the body, right? Pleasing these senses will make me happy, you see? They don't realize that they're buying a ticket to great suffering. They're buying, you know, they're punching their ticket to stay in material prison. So this process that he's going to teach now, this idea that bhakti is better than mukti. I'm sorry, I'm going over time again. This comes up again and again. And that is just by Lord Chaitanya's famous verse, Nadanam najanam nasundadim kapitam vajagadishikamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavata bhaktida hoituki tahi. Wealth and women, followers, the fruits of mundane piety, liberation from this world of limitless anxiety. For me, O Lord, these common goals have not the slightest worth. Let me serve you purely now and in each future birth. So first he's discounting the usual things that people pray for. Wealth, followers, beautiful mate, you know, you could add your own list, you know, health, all these things, no. And then he says, I just want to serve you without any material motivation. The same thing comes up here, haituki, birth after birth. That means I'm not praying for liberation, you see. So this is how we should pray. We should know these verses. I made that little poem, yeah. The easy way to remember. So, the conclusion is that when the mind, without being